Hello and welcome to the Modern Human Podcast with your host, Wendy.
And Brenda. Hello, everyone.
Hey guys, it's the end of January.
Already, yes.
And a lot of people have been talking about how this month seems like it's like there's years within this month. It is weirdly a very long month. Why is that?
We're at 31 days, right?
It's true. It is the longest number of days in a month that's possible.
No, but it's really an element of the spiritual awakening that is happening as we have the old and the new coming together, right? And what does that really feel like? We can talk about it a lot, and yet when we invite it into our being, we can really feel into those deaths and rebirths and new births. So all of these things are unraveling and unfolding, and it's really, for me, uncomfortable and interesting all at the same time, right? So showing up for all of that, that's kind of been a theme of like, just stay present, stay in the now, and show up for how you feel and what you think, and unravel more of that about yourself, because more is unraveling, and the only way you're going to be able to know of it is to sit in it and be in it.
Yeah, and just there's been a lot of activity this month too, right? So that's partly why it does feel like so much stuff is going on, or that these days it's like we're being so productive this month. And this month is typically a time when we're kind of regrouping from the holidays and kind of having some downtime. Everything's slow, even no one's shopping, right? Everyone's kind of in this lull. But this year has been a little bit different, where there's been a lot of fire energy. We've talked about that a lot of activity, a lot of prep work. There's a sense of urgency within everyone that we don't understand what that is. We're like, hey, what should we be doing? There's a lot of action kind of energy. So yeah, I think that.
And I would argue even like interpersonal purging. I feel like for a lot of people in my world and around me, and how, the work I'm doing with others is really about letting go of what no longer serves you, in kind of a, I don't know what words to use, like a rush way, or like on steroids way. Like, it's intense. It's like, hey, it's time, get on it, go. And that's really neat, because I don't know how you feel about this, but it feels so different, right, than it has in the past. It feels so different than it's been in this entire lifetime of like, things are like picking up in a quicker pace, and all of that as we go within feels appropriate, and it feels like just the timing or the energetic opportunities of this planet now, this universe now, right? Like, acknowledging that, like, these are the messages that we keep getting over and over and over and over. It's like, this is new territory, this is new ground. You really don't understand how it works here now. It's all shifted, and that's really important to spend some time in, to get to know this new earth, this new way that the wind speaks, or the way that the trees bend or glow. Like, spending time in this quiet space within, like, I feel like that's been this month for me.
Yeah, because it's almost like the channel has shifted, the channel to how we connect, or how we even recuperate some of those energetic losses is different, because we're doing the things we did the old way, and it's like, hey, that's not working, or that's not working in the same way. So really having to be open and flexible in that way. So yeah. So this week we wanted to kind of focus in on, we obviously always channel a painting that encompasses the month energy, kind of just as a doorway. The painting holds a frequency and even information that is beyond words. So that's partly why we use the painting as a prop, kind of, or a thing to step off of.
A vehicle of like observing or noticing.
Yeah. So this is the last week of January, is the last day of January, really. But we wanted to talk about one last theme, and it has to do with Brent, like what Brenda was saying about letting go of things, a lot of change. And so it's the tree part of the painting, which you can see here. And it's important. It's not only in this painting and what Spirit's trying to tell us about this month, because it's right, there's not like it just stops. It's not linear. It's going to continue to go into February. So these are going to be kind of ongoing themes that overlap. So depending on where you are in your growth, what you're moving through. So the tree in its significance. So what does the tree mean, Brenda?
What does the tree mean to me? You're putting me on the spot.
Yeah. We've had a lot of people ask questions like, what is the tree? Because
a lot of people honed right in on it, right? So
Yeah.
I don't know what to do.
no, like a lot of people honed in on the tree because they're like, what? This tree is falling over. And it's interesting in the quantum art video that I created for this, I shared, and I'll share it again here. The first time I created a painting with the stump was when I created a painting with it, which is funny that, you know, the Egyptian mythology is behind us here again, but Anubis was in this painting, as you can see here. And, you know, there's the stump, and there was, you know, Anubis is the, you know, god of the afterlife. So in that way, he, you know, you go and meet Anubis, and he weighs your life with a feather, and either you move on and expand into another dimension, or you're cast as some kind of purgatory or something. But
yeah, he like sends you back. He's like, you need to redo
Keep
this
going.
life. Yep,
Yep.
redo it or something like
I
that.
mean, a feather is a very light thing. That's probably why I'm here. Anyway, so, but it was interesting because this was created during COVID. I created this during COVID.
Yeah.
And I had no idea really even what it meant. It was like, no, but there's something with this dead tree, this dead stump. And you can even see it in December's painting. So December, it came in again with a stump. And then here it is again. So in some ways, I feel like it's the old paradigm. Like, what do we do? Because trees are knowledge. So what do we do when we're shifting from one paradigm to another? You know, there's that period of not only grief, right? But there's also a lot of new life at the same time that is coexisting. And how do we navigate that space that can be extremely uncomfortable sometimes, and not get lost, or maybe kind of how can we glean the wisdom from this space, you know, this period of our process that we're
Change,
in.
really, this period of change, and we're
Change.
going to be here for, I mean, the information we get or the guidance that we get about it is we're going to be in this, some form of this, and it's going to obviously always be changing. Change is going to be our new best friend for the next like 6 years, right? Like, really, as we unravel, and then from there it's really going to be new information and new things, and all of that will be coming through as well in these next 6 years. So a lot of new and a lot of saying goodbye to this old. So this paradigm of this tree, I mean, it makes me wonder, is this going to be here for the next 6 or so years? You know, it might be something that you pull through again, because letting go of that no longer serves us is an element of rebirth. We can't ignore that or avoid that or deny it. It is going to be here. So I know a lot have been kind of pulling through this getting comfortable with being uncomfortable, but that's an element of it. If you can embrace that and enjoy that and laugh with that and just be curious about all of that, that's going to be your fastest way through it, is that joy. You know, and one of the things I kind of mentioned at the very end of our last podcast is I want to come through, because Spirit really comes through with this message of your fastest way through this, your easiest way through this is transparency. Transparency within your own being. You know, our dragon that doesn't really have a form, or it's this iridescent transparent form, right? You can see through it, see through yourself, acknowledge yourself, speak your truth, behave in ways that in alignment with you. Because I mean, I know that I'm experiencing, when I go along with things that no longer serve me, or I go along with things that maybe are people pleasing, I kind of get kicked in the butt, literally. Like, hey, stop.
It's me kicking her in the butt. Literally.
Every time now. Yes, probably.
Not really.
That is helpful, though, to have those kind of supports for someone to say, hey, you know, is this really what you want for your highest and greatest good? And so holding yourself accountable, that's part of being transparent, taking responsibility that this world is yours. And that's not just of course, I know, okay, I'm doing it. I invite you to sit for a moment and say, am I taking responsibility? What is in this reality, in this experience for me? What do I like about it? What don't I like about it? All of it is your creation. Can you sit in that? Can you be still, be quiet? That's a part of being transparent. It's all evident. It's all here. Be curious. Be loving. Be powerful and kind and change what no longer serves you. Meaning, if you feel or think or are afraid that life is out to get you or that bad things are happening, you know what? That's okay. You're not doing anything wrong. Show up for that and sit in that and feel that. Does that align with you? Because I encourage you to join me. Nothing bad is happening. Change is happening, and that is scary for the human being. There's no way for it not to be. There's always going to be a little part of us going, huh? What's happening? I'm not really sure. And yet in that openness, we surrender to all that is, and we allow who we really are to pull through and discover what our resolution is or our answer. Ask the questions to yourself. What do I like? What do I want here? Is there anything in this creation that I have right now that I'd like to let go of? And name it. It's that simple. It truly is, and we forget that I got to do something. I've got to do. No, I cannot tell you. The minute we start to do, we've already figured it out, and we're already beginning to kind of close the energy. That's that dense frequency that Wendy's talking about, a little bit heavier than a feather, right? So if we keep ourselves light and surrender and say, what are my options? Try them all on. Well, I can do nothing. Absolutely. I can do everything. Absolutely. Keep going. Sit in that. Rambled a lot, but do you want to add to that or shift us out of that a little bit?
No, that makes a lot of sense. I feel like, it's a very important space to be in. It's just being in that present space, kind of cultivating your relationship with yourself and with the divine. And she's like, that's what she's kind of talking about. Like, she's like, that's the sweet spot. That's where really all the work is done. And that's why there's nothing really to do if you can cultivate that space. And yet this tree, it's really interesting because, you started off talking about people pleasing, and you start talking about how, things that really aren't aligned with your truth, right? Because people pleasing is meaning you're kind of going along because you don't want the conflict. It's fine. It's fine.
You know that they're in a lot of pain, so you're like, I don't want to poke that bear.
Right. Or they really, they really want me to go to this movie, I really like what's right for me is I'm really tired and I want to go read or do some self-care, whatever, right? I always bring up a movie. And I never have gone to movies in years.
I know, I'm like, are you trying to get out of that show on Thursday that we're going to?
No. Maybe. No, I'm joking. But what's so interesting about this tree, if you look at this tree, it actually it's full of growth, right? And it's actually fallen over on the other side. But here's what's so interesting about the tree that when you were talking, that I got, is if you look at the part that's fallen, it's hollow inside, right? The tree is actually hollow inside. So it's substance. So inside the tree, even though it might look so perfect on the outside, its insides were hollow. And I feel like that's really significant because
that's partly what we're talking
that's
about.
What you're talking about.
It's like if it doesn't have that hardy substance, that full, all those rings of the tree or whatever.
And that is symbolic of your own power. And honestly, there's other words in shamanism would be your truth, right? And I feel like this has been really coming through. It's already starting to come through for February for the retreat that we have coming up this weekend. It's so important to align your voice and your actions to what's true for you, and not out of
thoughts, like all of that even inside, yeah.
Right. And I don't mean, I'm not talking about fear. I'm talking about the truth, meaning like, and we lie to ourselves all the time, and we're unraveling that with this narcissism, that's kind of coming up in our culture a lot, because it's like, the actions aren't matching with words in a lot of spaces, in a lot of businesses, a lot of, what are they called? Institutions, in our culture, where their actions aren't lining up with the words, like for our best good, but then why would they be doing this? Like these lies,
we have
these
to
are
lies,
lies,
things,
right?
Yeah.
So we're unraveling all of that. And so just how, it's just so important to really know what actually has substance for yourself. Meaning if somebody's really making you mad, and being like, I hate that person, or that person's just a jerk. The truth of the matter is that it's hitting on your insecurity, or that actually has a lot more substance than he's a jerk. That actually has no substance, right? Because it's a lie. So it's almost like we're really at the end of this month, moving into February, we're starting to like, what's true for you? What's your lies?
What's your substance? Who
What's
are you
your
really
substance?
underneath all of it, right?
The real truth. And that's
Right.
why that transparency piece is so important. It's like,
Because that's really what fills us up. That is who we really are. That is our substance, our essence.
right. And when we know what that substance is, then we actually move. Meaning, like, if somebody's triggering me and they continue to trigger me, and I'm like, no, they just crossed my boundaries, but then the trigger's still there. And I'm like, well, I put up a boundary. Why is that trigger still there, right? I haven't gotten to that heart of it. I haven't gotten to the substance of it, which is, man, I really think poorly about myself, or whatever the truth is for yourself. And that's why you have to go within and cultivate that space that Brenda was talking about, because you got to know what that is, because as soon as you hit the truth, that's the substance.
Instantly transform.
It
Instantly
instantly
heals.
transforms.
Instantly moves.
And then you instantly move through that. That's why the tree is almost the other side of getting on the path. You know, like this path of the hexagon here, right? Like, how do we move into the space, the cyclical space, or the spiral space of keeping moving and moving on into that, off into the golden sunset, whatever that is.
No, which just feels so peaceful when you're looking at that painting.
Yeah.
Like, that's such a beautiful, comfortable place to be in. And that's where I feel like we're being guided into within ourselves. And I get really excited about this conversation because this way of being is easier than what we've been doing. And I'm going to say that again. This way of being is easier than the programming that we've been taught, because it is simply about you being yourself. It is not about avoiding or denying being afraid. It is about being transparent about it. I am afraid. I am uncertain. That has substance in it, because it's truth for you. And it's not about being mad at the person. You're allowed to be mad. You need to be mad because you are. It's taking responsibility that I feel mad. I'm not even sure why. I'm noticing I want to hate on that person. And I'm noticing maybe that doesn't feel good. At least I notice that. It doesn't feel good when I want to like judge them or criticize them. And when you unravel the nuances of that, that is not in alignment with who we really are. It's not going to feel good, not ever. And in fact, it moves us somewhere that I feel most of us don't really want to be. And then we're cursing the world. Why are we here? When it's, again, this responsibility, this accountability, and this transparency of self. I feel like I might be going along with something that doesn't work for me because this doesn't feel good. Whatever it is, stay very, very, very open. It's easier than you might think. It's such, right? I mean, it's just like we get into this and we're just like, this is me, this is all my hot mess or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it can be very overwhelming, especially if you don't know how or why you feel a certain way. And it's hard to navigate that space sometimes, you know, because maybe you're overwhelmed and you just really don't like something, or, you know.
Meaning like you want it to go away.
You want it to go away because it's so overwhelming and you don't even, what are you supposed to do with all of that, you know? You know, because a lot of what Brenda and I talk about is like the process, or the sacred process of becoming, of awakening, of growing spiritually. And that's a really hard thing to put words on because it's a magical experience. So we try to kind of talk around it. But it can be overwhelming, you know. It's like being transparent. Well, sometimes, especially like you're a lot more emotionally aware, I feel like, than I am. And I have to work on that more, because sometimes I don't know why I feel the way that I do, because it could be a very young part that doesn't have, you know, words yet, you know, but it just knows that I don't like that, or like.
Do you feel like you have to know why? I mean, do you feel like you get?
I feel like I sit in the space of feeling until I understand why. I feel like, maybe that can help somebody's. Because what you're saying is you don't have to understand why, you just have to feel the feelings.
Yeah, I would argue, you know, some of the freedom of that is like the why of it, and because it can be off, because we might not remember, we might not know, right? It might be at such a young age or a different experience that we don't even have a thought with it anymore. And so like acknowledging how our body feels or what's arising, and just saying, man, I feel this way, and it's not good or bad or right or wrong. And I mean, I know we've had conversations where sometimes we don't know why, you know, whatever, this person, they trigger me. I'm not even sure why. All I can do is show up for how I feel with them. I feel unsafe. Well, that's really important. And that's a gift that other person is giving me, this unsafety or triggering of that feeling within me that exists, that's unsafe. I think that that's a really, I appreciate you bringing that
Yeah,
up
and
because
just kind
it's
of keep
important.
feeling it. So if you do have a trigger, there's something that is uncomfortable, it's just really owning how you feel and not trying to move yourself out of it, even if you know it's a lower frequency or whatever all of that stuff is. Like, I'm just angry, because it doesn't feel good. We don't want to be angry or hurtful or whatever. I feel like our intentions are sort of like, why are we this way? So we kind of try to.
Don't you think that that's a program though? I mean, because to me, I really don't feel that way or think that way. I really in no way feel that there are any bad feelings, any negative lower frequency. I definitely acknowledge some are very uncomfortable and I don't like them as much as others, but I feel like the more that I embrace them and love them and I'm like, yep, I'm really, really upset today and I'm going to be in it and it's messy, raw. I guess it's like that programming of like, I just shouldn't be upset. And it's like, well, but you are like that push, pull or fight with it. It's like,
yeah, and it's a complex thing because there is a point that you do have to stop engaging in those feelings, and that's maybe we're just doing that too soon. We're like, well, we should we need to stop participating in this story, right? Like there is a point when you have to cut the addiction off. If you are addicted to that that reoccurring story or that rejection, in some ways we're addicted to that. That's what we're used to.
That drama that let's say everybody's out to get me or everybody, no one supports me, yeah, for sure.
Or whatever keeps you going.
Because that's the programming here, right? That we have to reconcile and take responsibility for. I think that the world's out to get me. We have to own that. We have to be like, yeah, I'm here. And then say, you know what? I'm releasing the need for that thought. I'm letting it go and I'm choosing a different one. And each and every time it comes up, I feel like this is what you're talking about, acknowledging, no, I hear you and I'm letting go.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. It's like, what's the difference between sitting in it, knowing when it's appropriate to sit in it and just allow for it.
Yeah.
And knowing, or when you need to reprogram your thoughts. I feel like people are jumping, because we're always wanting to do something. And I feel like that's probably what it is. Like we want to do something with the emotions, so we're going to reprogram them. So we kind of jump that too soon. And so that's why they keep coming back.
Right. Because if the trigger keeps coming back, then that's a feeling space. That's a trauma that needs to be healed and reconciled within you. And that means showing up and feeling it truly. And then the thought, I mean, it's so true. I definitely,
what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah, it's definitely always twofold, and I talk about it all the time in my practice.
Yeah, it's like in having the wisdom to know when that time is right for you, and only you will know. Meaning, and that it feels different. It's almost like there's still sadness in here that I'm trying to understand or experience or whatever.
Yeah, and I know.
Or if you're feeding the sadness, I feel like that's. Are you feeding the sadness, or is there actual sadness that needs to be expressed because it's been repressed?
Yeah, when we started doing this work, and my psyche afterwards would want to go into all the things that I did wrong. And I would do this every time. All the things, I was like, oh, I probably did that wrong. Until finally I was noticing, I was like, Brenda, what are we doing? Like, this is what? I'm sorry, what? We're talking about this is so, I didn't even notice for months. And then slowly and truly acknowledging, hey, listen, I get it. I love you so much. We're not having that conversation. We didn't do anything wrong. We can definitely talk about how we might improve and grow and expand. And we're definitely going to talk about all the things that we did right. And we're going to feed that and build that. That doesn't take away from my vulnerabilities and insecurities that, let's say, I'm afraid to not be loved and supported. I have to show up for that. I have to feel into that. And that is really uncomfortable. And I feel like that's what you're talking about.
Yeah. So like at first, if you were to take your example, let's say you do something and you're going to judge and criticize yourself because those, we all do that. Like, especially as an artist, you're like, put up a painting or whatever. You're like, look at all the things I did wrong on it. That's kind of what you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
And not even realizing how critical you're being. So at first you're experiencing that. And then you start noticing that you're being critical. And then you have to go into that space of the unworthiness of that. Oh, yeah. So then you have to start allowing for that unworthiness to come out in a conscious way. Right. And then as you allow that to express,
because I'm going to find it, and in my being, they're going to go, well, but do you remember this, Brenda? We experienced this. We didn't feel loved here, and I'm going to sit there and say, that makes sense.
It wasn't like what I ever said. Or,
Right.
And then as that unfolds, and that could be a process of a few weeks or a few months, depending on how much you're unraveling, right? And then
Years over here. Can I hand up? Yeah.
Years.
And all worth it.
And this is like the
worth
5th
it.
time we've recorded this. No, we just do this off the cuff, so there's
There's probably a lot of little improvements.
there's probably a lot
there.
of ums. We're not actresses. Okay.
Nothing wrong with that.
But then after you allow for those feelings and you start exploring it consciously, I feel like consciously is the key word there, like really going into that space and exploring where those things are. And then you allow for that. So, but then after you understand where it's from and you fully have allowed it to have a voice,
Right.
then there's still the habit of criticizing. That after that, that's when you start, nope, we don't talk about that. That's not nice. We're doing a great job.
Right. Exactly.
It's after you've done the exploring.
After really exploring, like in that, because I know what you mean, but I want to name that a little further, is just seeing it, hearing it, validating it, and loving it, whether it's a thought or feeling, any part of you, any nuance within you. See it, hear it, validate it, love it thoroughly. And who knows how many layers are there and how much time it's going to take, right? And then once that is done, then there is an element of effort and habit that, yes, we have to show up for and practice, because it is a different way of being than what we've been taught. And that's okay. We got this.
Yeah. And bringing that full circle back to this tree, it's almost like the things that aren't really in solid rooted, they're not rooted in love, they're not rooted in connected to your heart. I mean, this is the new earth, right? Connected to your heart, your higher self, kind of holding a higher frequency, if you want to say that, but it really is just connected to love. It's going to lack substance, meaning it's all like a farce. So it's like fake flowers or fake
Facade, like
It's a
the
facade.
facade. There's no real,
right, like, you know, if you're one of those people that are always fine, but you're never fine really, and no one knows, you know, it would be a false tree, you know. And those are the things, wherever that is going on in your life, that is the thing that's falling over.
And it's time, and we get to know ourselves and each other in an authentic and real way. And this is where magic really begins to happen. This is where community truly does come back to itself. That's what this is all about right now. It's so worth it. And I know you said that it's not always easy, and definitely I want to honor that. And it's easier than you think is really what I would say, because it is more natural to who we really are. And it doesn't mean that you're not going to meet up with your fears and insecurities, and those matter.
Not
And
always
admit them.
fun,
Yeah, exactly.
but it's so important, and you deserve to feel loved, right? And that's on the other side of this, is the hollowness on the other side of it. By showing up in this authentic, transparent way, it gets filled. So it's no longer this hollow structure, it's actually filled. Yeah, so I guess the question is, you know, whatever's falling apart in your life or falling over or maybe ending, you know, everything is happening for your highest and greatest good. There was some lack of substance in that space. And knowing that even if you might not understand it logically, you know, we invite you to kind of explore that. And the last piece I want to say before we go is just this tree that's fallen over, and it has all this lushness on the orange and yellow and red side. It's really telling that, you know, those spaces where it might be hollow, it's those parts of our body, that's parts of our chakra system, are going to know the truth. It's going to know and have that transparency. And that's why we're saying you have to really practice just going into that feeling space, because those are what those 3 chakras represent, right? It represents, you know, your physical needs, you know, your emotional needs, and then your sense of identity. So in that way, really trusting that your body knows, your spirit knows and has the wisdom. That's where you can kind of land back onto. Right, like explore that. Are those areas of your body healthy and functioning? You know, like, are they vibrant? And do you feel like all your needs are met, and that you can follow your own rhythm? Like you can just sleep as much as you need to, or
In life, like, I mean, pulling back with the feather, you know, I mean, we're meant to be that effortless and surrendered and light with it. So
yeah, our natural state, like you were saying months ago, was like our natural state is actually peacefulness. But I knew that my what's it called? My nervous system. My nervous system didn't even recognize that. you know, it's so used to being on high alert just from stress or overworking or whatever, that it was like I had to really kind of pull back and be like, no, peacefulness and silence is actually the natural state. And so it takes a while to even accommodate that. So we're works in progress, man. We're in it with
Got
you.
this, absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us.
And we will share more February's painting next week. So we hope that follow along. Let us know what you guys think.
Absolutely. Namaste.
Until next time.